Today is Friday, November 14th, and we're joined by Max Mannis between the bases starts right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Between the Bases podcast. My name is Noak, and today we're joined by the host of the Max Mannis podcast, Max Mannis. Max, how you doing today?
What's going on, Noak? I feel like for a long time I would get introduced as John Boy Media's Max Mannis, and now it's the host of the Max Mannis pod, Max Mannis. So I'm moving up in the world. What's good, dude? I appreciate you having me as always.
Oh, thank you for coming on. But I was debating whether to introduce you. You know, you've been on a lot of times, but just had to let that one
mix it up. We got to mix it up from time to time. No, you can introduce me however you please.
Yeah, I mean, next time you come on, you know, maybe we're not just going to introduce you at all. That's just like your normal host of the pod. So.
Exactly. All right,
but let's
talk some Yanks. Or
let's
you
start
take
with,
it however you want. Yeah.
I mean, before this, you've used to be the guest. So now you're used to being the host. So it's
I'm jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah, but let's start with last night. Obviously, last night, Aaron Judge won the MVP. You know, you could start off by saying all the Mariners fans listening, why Judge deserved to win the MVP over Cal Raleigh, because they're all complaining. I see them all over Twitter right now complaining that Cal Raleigh didn't win the MVP in East Coast bias. So what are your thoughts there?
I mean, the East Coast biasing is, it was always whatever. But if you look at the voting breakdown, it was interesting. I think it was Gary Phillips quote tweeted someone else who posted this, that it was actually, let me make sure I'm getting the numbers right. It was actually the central like time zone reporters who were the ones that mostly skewed the vote against him. He said that, hold on, this is bad podcasting, but I'm pulling it up quickly. He said from the Pacific time zone, they went 5-1, the vote for Raleigh. Eastern time zone split 7-7, but within the Central time zone, it went 9-1 for Judge. So I don't know if you have, it doesn't seem like East Coast bias to me. It seems like Central Coast bias for a guy in New York. But listen, I can't fault any Mariners fan for thinking Cal deserves to win MVP, right? Like, I think one of the things we forget a lot of the time is that really any sport, but especially baseball, when you watch 162 games of your guy, like, it should make sense that you go to bat for him. Like, if I was Tigers fan, I'm going to bat for Scooble. If I'm a Pirates fan, I'm going to bat for Skeens. Like, whoever you watch, obviously you're going to have your heartstrings for your guy. But at the end of the day, clearly the voters knew that the Yankee fan vouching for Judge had no bias behind it, right? Like, the Yankee fan vouching for Judge is like, I don't know, his OPS is 200 points higher. He consistently does his all. Like, Cal's great, but the 60 his 60 home run season was a little bit different from Judge's, right? Judge was 60 homers plus just gargantuan offensive numbers across the board.
I think he was sitting over He was sitting over 300 as his MVP.
Yeah, exactly. And he ended up winning the batting title this year, which I feel like people aren't even talking enough about. But whatever, that's a separate topic. I mean, at the end of the day, the correct person won. But yeah, hats off to Cal. I think it should be. There were a lot of people saying this, and they're right, that we shouldn't have to disparage one person in order to bring up another person. Like, they both had incredible seasons. But yes, at the end of the day, the stats show that clearly Judge. Also, when you factor in the intentional walks, and if Judge wasn't intentionally walked 30 plus times, he could have also had 60 homers like Cal. But if Cal was intentionally walked 30 times, I don't think he would have had 60 homers. And the defense stuff, which is weird that people, obviously it's very impressive that Cal did what he did while being a catcher. I'm not going to dispute that at all. But there were also people that were almost downplaying Judge's defense as if he's not a good defensive player, which was a little bit insane. Because I think when Soto left, that was the biggest thing for the Yankees, was the biggest silver lining was okay, Judge gets to move back to first, to right field. We don't have to put him in center where, injury prone and all that becomes a question. We can put him at his best defensive position, and we can very clearly just run out the best defensive lineup that we have. All's well that ends well.
All right. The guy hit 330 and hit 50-something homers. Cal Raleigh hit 60 homers. Yeah, that's cute, but he hit 240. At the end of the day, Judge hit 330.
Yeah. I feel like Yankee that almost got somehow lost in the mix of us talking about Judge and the great season he had. Is the fact that he had a batting title. There were so many other impressive things that he did that I feel like the fact that he had a batting title almost kind of got oddly tossed to the wayside a little bit. It was no, don't forget that, whatever. You can have your debates, analytics, whatever, how much you do and don't care about batting average. That's for everyone to determine for themselves. But we can't just ignore that when we're having the MVP discussion. That is something that needs to be at least factored into whatever capacity you think it's appropriate. But
Yeah, and people are saying that if they took Cal Raleigh off the Mariners and took Judge off the Yankees, the Mariners would be much worse than the Yankees would. Are people forgetting that when Judge was struggling this year, the Yankees team spiraled out of control to the point where the Yankees were a game out of missing the playoffs? They were a game ahead of the Cleveland Guardians at one point. They were
Yeah,
spiraling out of control when Judge got hurt.
If you watch the Yankees on a 162 game basis, not just this year, but really ever since Judge took over, you kind of understand that the Yankees lineup goes as Judge goes. Like there are a lot of great supporting pieces, but even when like Soto was the only other guy that we've really seen that could carry the offense when Judge was down. But even that, like, it's still the offense was not firing on all cylinders the same way it was when you have Judge going. And especially now that he's gone, like, don't get me wrong, I love Bellinger. I want it back. Jazz was awesome. All the not a shot at them in any way, shape, or form, but there's only one Aaron Judge. And it's not just the numbers that you see on the paper. It's when you watch him day in, day out, you understand that the lineup kind of goes as he goes, and if you can pick them apart, then it means that they can pitch differently to the guy who's hitting ahead of him and the guy who's hitting behind him. The whole dynamic of the whole lineup changes. I think that's kind of what the Dodgers exposed, honestly, in 2024 when they were playing us, is that Stanton's at bats, you can kind of pitch him very differently. As long as if Judge isn't going, it enables you to attack everybody else, whoever's the hot bat at the time. Like the Dodgers kind of ultimately took the bat out of Stanton's hands for a lot, like games 2 through 4 in that World Series, because they were like, screw it, Judge isn't hitting, so suddenly we're going to treat Stanton like Judge and Judge like whoever you want to treat, the secondary guy as. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's move on to the offseason talk, because everyone knows that the Judge window is kind of closing, right? You have Judge and Cole in their primes, and it could fall off as of next year, right? If I give you the keys to the Yankees offseason right now, what is one guy you're getting? That one must guy.
Yeah, I mean, the first I'll just say, as far as like the window closing, this is something that like the Judge Cole window is closing to that extent in that they're getting older. Yes, but I think one of the things that we, it's a bit of a gray area thing for Yankees fans, because at the end of the day, we know the Yankees window never really closes, right? Like the Yankees are the only time in my lifetime that I can remember that the Yankees entered a rebuilding year was 2017, and then ended up a game away from the World Series. So even when like the Yankees are not in a position, whereas if you're the Pirates or the Tigers that have Scooble and Skeens, or if you're one of these other teams that has like once in a generation amazing talent, and you say, okay, we got to capitalize on this window because after this guy goes, we're screwed. It's not quite that to that same extent with the Yankees, because the Yankees are always going to run a competitive product out there, whether Judge is in the picture or not. But goes without saying that I don't even want to speak it into action. I don't even want to put these words out into the universe. But the thought of Judge and Cole going their whole Yankees careers without getting a ring is like, if you had told me in 2017 that, all those years later, the Yankees would still never have a ring. I think even now, even if and when Judge does get his ring, I think the fact that we're in 2025 and I don't want to say we haven't gotten closer, because 2024, obviously we were there, but I think in a lot of Yankees fans deep down, 2017 still feels like it was the team, but we told ourselves like, it's fine. We'll be back. We're young, and we'll be back it's a dangerous truth to try to talk yourself into in sports, because it's not always true. But as far as this offseason, I think signing Bellinger is kind of priority number one on everyone's mind, except I know there's a whole Tucker crowd out there, which, don't get me wrong, the guy's great. I've kind of just accepted mentally the Yankees are not going to pay for him, so that kind of just is what it is. Beyond that, I think Imai, I always try to be a little bit cautious over who I'm deciding in November as like the guy, because I feel like going back over many years, 1 year it was Yamamoto. There were other years where I'm sure there's always guys that we can easily look at and be like, oh, that's the guy I want the Yankees to get. And within 2 weeks, it's just like, all right, that he's he's a Blue Jay, he's a Cub, he's a Mariner, he's whatever it is. And, kind of just gets tossed to the wayside. So I never want to put myself in a position where I have too many heartstrings on like, this has to be the guy. And I think even when you look across the board at this year's free agents, there's no one guy that's jumping off the page. Like, one thing that I've been repeating a lot this offseason that I think a lot of Yankees fans are forgetting is that each of the last 3 off seasons for the Yankees has been centered around a sweepstakes for either Judge or Soto, right? Like the last offseason we had that was not very much centered around like, who's this? We need to get this guy. How can we get this specific guy? Was the 2022 like lockout offseason, when the move that kind of defined the offseason ended up being the Twins trade for Donaldson and IKF, which again, I don't even want to put that out to the universe either. But So we're kind of at this position now the Yankees fans haven't been in a few years of like, all right, well, who do we like? Because no one's really jumping off the page. There's a couple of guys that we like, but everybody kind of has their own question marks. Bregman is a guy that I've been having an eye on that I'm surprised there aren't more Yankees fans pounding the table for him. I know we have McMahon, but the Yankees need a righty bat, and I think if there's a world where Alex Bregman is even somewhat in play, I think that's something you need to consider, and you can figure out what to do with McMahon after the fact. But easy enough salary to move. I know last year when Bregman was a free agent, there were a lot of reports that the Yankees didn't like the way his swing would play at the stadium, and they had some other metrics that kind of convinced them to be out on him. But I don't know, maybe I'm biased because I want another Jewish player on the Yankees, but I think Bregman would be awesome if they can make that work. If not, like I said, Imai, which I think for as much of it is a baseball move, and he's, I don't want to say who's to say how he's going to be in the majors because we've kind of reached a point with Japanese pitchers where we haven't really had a Japanese guy come over and just be a total dud in a while. Like maybe Senga and Yoshida fell off a little bit from where they were, not like more than a little bit, to be fair, from when they were at in their rookie years, but those are still very quality MLB players. So I think we've reached a point with Japan baseball where not only is the ceiling really high for the guys that come over, but the floor also seems to be pretty high because we haven't had a total bust in a while. And for as much as that's a baseball decision, I think a lot of it is also an off-field decision for, the business and the marketing and the brand and all that matters so much to the Yankees and to every team. But I'm sure that all 30 MLB teams right now are looking at what the Dodgers are doing and they're saying, hey, we want a slice of this Japanese money pie because there's just way too much going on there that we want in there. So for me, Bellinger and Imai is kind of just the starting point. I didn't even really think the Yankees were going to spend all that much on a pitcher. But now that we're going into next season with Rodon and Clark and Cole and all these guys that we're saying, we're kind of banking on all of them being back relatively early on into the year. But, I can't tell you how many times over the course of, it's not even just a Yankees thing. I think just pitchers as a whole right now. How many times do we look at a pitcher that they say, oh, he'll be ready for spring training, and then he has a setback, and suddenly it's 2 weeks into April, and then it's June, and then it's the All-Star break. Like stuff can go awry. So the more depth you can have, never a bad thing to have. And like you said, once Cole starts getting older, once Rodon starts getting older, it'll help to have some younger blood flushed into the system. So Imai is interesting from that standpoint. And then what are they going to do with the bullpen is interesting, right? I think that they kind of got a head start on that at the deadline. I think when they got Bednar and Doval, their plan with that was very much like, okay, this is kind of our fall safe for if Weaver and Williams both leave in free agency, as we have two high leverage relievers with closing experience. And we, maybe what we saw from Doval was a bit of a mixed bag. Actually, honestly, up until the playoffs. In the playoffs, we kind of like what we saw from him, but the regular season was, hopefully we can just wash that and move on. But I do think the Yankees' logic with that was, okay, this not only gives us leverage in negotiations with Weaver and Williams, but if they do leave, we're genuinely in like a fine enough spot as far as, okay, we'll be all right. We probably need a couple arms. Pete Fairbanks is someone that's interesting. I've put it out there, and there have been a couple people saying that his cold and hot weather splits don't really, scream somebody who's, great for New York. But I think just mindset wise, like that dude's a maniac. Him and Bednar at the back end of a bullpen feels like something that could be very fun to watch over 162. But they need a strikeout lefty too. That was kind of something they were missing all of last season. They had Hill, they had Hedrick as their lefty arms, but they didn't really have a, who's your guy to go get.
Tyler Matzik.
Yeah. Tyler Matzik, throwback. But like when Devers was there, or when it was in the World Series in Ohtani, like the Yankees didn't really have that like a lefty guy in the pen that it was like, all right, go get him. So that's something that they need. And I don't know who that really is. Jake, like my boss from John Boy, threw Gregory Soto out there, which I'm interested. I don't want to commit one way or another, but it, probably one of the better options I've heard so far. But yeah, we'll have to see. It's the first offseason in a while for the Yankees where I think it's not that there's a lack of excitement from the fan base. I think it's more so just everybody's kind of just doing a big shrug right now because there's no obvious, like, okay, go get this guy. Whereas in the last few years, like I said, we've been used to like, all right, get Judge and figure everything out. Get Soto, or if we're not getting Soto, pivot and then figure everything out. And it's been a while since we've had an offseason where we look at the board and we're like, I don't know who's the guy.
Yeah, going back to the Judge thing first, I kind of talked myself into it that Judge is probably going to win a ring when it's not his Yankees. It's the Ben Rice Yankees. It's the Anthony Volpe-led Yankees. It's the Austin Wells-led Yankees. It's not going to be his I mean, he's going to be on part of the team, but it's not going to be his team. And because I think if they,
Maybe. I don't know. But continue.
okay, and then going back to the bullpen, I think that Jake Bird obviously sent him down early. I think that he's going to have a much bigger role, being he wasn't part of the major league roster, but part of the minor league roster, just fitting in with the Yankees organization. I think he has to have a better year because he was so good in Colorado, and that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So he has to be better. I mean,
yeah, I mean, low bar. Yeah, I like Jake Bird. I was really happy when they brought him over, again, at least partially because I like having Jewish Yankees on the team. But I genuinely like a lot of the time with pitchers and stuff like that, I generally just look at Twitter and I go to the people that I know are smarter than me, like the Sarises of the world and all the pitch tracking nerds and all that. And I'm just like, all right, if you guys like him, that's enough for me. So yeah, and I know a lot of those people really like Jake Bird. So yeah, like you said, kind of jury's still out on him. We'll see where we're at next year. But yes, I think the Yankees. Honestly, like I think as far as the Yankees were concerned, they were kind of cool with Jake Bird being get him in the building. We might have to work through some kinks, give him a full winter to work on whatever Blake and Sam Breen and all those other smart people that the Yankees want to do with him, and then we'll see where we're at in 26. I think that was probably kind of their plan for him all along. They have a lot of righty bullpen arms. But yeah, they definitely do still need one or two higher leverage arms than what they're working with right now.
Yeah, and then I like what you said there about Jake Bird, hopefully. But in terms of the offseason, it feels like if the Yankees rolled into spring training with this team, fans wouldn't like it, but like they would be competitive. They would go out there and win a lot of games, maybe win the AL East. I don't feel comfortable putting Spencer Jones out there. I still truly don't believe that he's ever going to play a game for the Yankees. I believe he's there as trade bait for them. But like the main guy is Jones and then maybe Grisham. I don't think Grisham accepts the qualifying offer. But you put Judge out there, and then you got Rice playing. I think pivoting topic here. I think you have to choose a position for Ben Rice here, and I think first base. People forget that he learned behind probably two of the greatest first basemen the past 10 years. So if you're going to pick a position for Ben Rice, please put him at first base. I like him at catcher, but he learned behind two greats. But in terms of an offseason name obviously you want the Bellingers of the world, you want the Bregmans of the world, but I think the Yankees, a smart move for them would be bringing someone like Max Scherzer, right? You get a veteran arm there, maybe like Justin Verlander, a veteran arm, because right now it's Allen Wyness at the 5 spot. If you bring in Verlander or Scherzer, Schlittler gets to learn behind Cole, Fried, Rodon, either Verlander or Scherzer. And someone's going to get hurt. You got young guys coming up too that they can learn behind. Max Scherzer as a player, and he can also be a type coach for somebody. I'd like Max Scherzer as a fit for the Yankees team.
Yeah, I don't know. Scherzer and Verlander, I think, are maybe a little too old for my liking, where they'll probably just be one-year guys. One guy that stood out to me kind of in a similar vein is Chris Bassett. On like a 2-year, I don't think he would get that much more than like 2 for 30, 2 for 35. And he's been like, honestly, like I might be undershooting him there. He might land a 3-year deal from someone like Chris Bassett has, he wasn't in like the Blue Jays like rotation this October, but he was a dude that was very involved. When you're a Yankees fan, you see him across from you. He's never a guy that you're pumped to see is, staring you down from the rubber at 7:05 that night. Been around the block once or twice. I have to do more of a deep dive on his underlying metrics and stuff like that, but I don't think he's someone that screams regression, screams like this guy's about to fall off the face of the earth. He's kind of I always use JD Martinez as an example of someone who is just so smart as a hitter that I'm kind of willing to believe that even as he ages, he's not going to be susceptible to the same aging curve as a lot of guys, because I think he'll just find different ways to do what he does, and Stanton's kind of the same way. And on the pitching side, Chris Bassett is someone that I would kind of put in that same category of like, I'm willing to believe that his bad isn't going to be so bad that you're going like, all right, we can't afford to hand this guy the ball. Like, I think if the Yankees give Chris Bassett 2 years for however much it ends up being, and the worst case scenario is he ends up being like a 4.6 ERA guy who still takes the ball every 5th day, with the kind of starting rotation depth that the Yankees have, that's not a bad dude to still have around. You know what I mean? And obviously the ceiling is much higher than that, and everything that you said about educational stuff and taking guys under their wing. Because for the Cam Schlitters of the world, being able to have Cole, Fried, Rodon, Bassett as guys to kind of go off to and pick their brains and go off of a little bit is invaluable.
And you've got young Willie Moore in there too, so he gets learned behind these guys. So,
Yeah.
but one guy, if the Yankees get this guy, if the Yankees get Munetaka Murakami, I think I'm gonna go nuts because I mean McMahon is a solid guy if you don't want the offense because his hot will happen eventually. He's gonna have one of those months, as Jake always says, that he's gonna have one of those months that his defense probably makes up for it. But if they get Munetaka Murakami, the guy's a 49% swing and miss percentage in Japan. All right, I know Japan pitchers are really good, but you're coming over the major leagues and you're facing these guys on every day. I don't, and another lefty in Yankees, another lefty for the Yankees. Let's go righty heavy. I don't want Munetaka Murakami. I'd rather the other guy, the other Japanese guy who puts the bat on the ball more. You know, Murakami feels like someone in the old Yankees that the Yankees are trying to get away from this year. But are you open to having Murakami on the Yankees?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the biggest thing is just like it's hard for me to write off any Japanese player coming to the big leagues immediately. Like right now, just seeing the success all the other guys have had, like I'm not going to sit here and, die on the hill that Murakami is going to be a 5-time All-Star or anything like that. But I'm also, I would be, just recent history has shown that it's not, there were a lot of people when Yamamoto and all those other people came by and said, that's never going to work here. And a lot of those people were wrong. So jury's still out on him for me. And I think that's a very fair perspective to take. I think, the pendulum, like I've seen a lot of people saying that the pendulum is almost swinging so far in the direction of, this guy thinks he's never going to make it at MLB, that suddenly it's like, is he becoming underrated a little bit, like the same way that happened to Bryce Harper for a little while, where people called him overrated for so long that he was like, well, suddenly he's underrated because everybody's saying he stinks, and he definitely doesn't stink. But I know like the Joey Gallo comp is easy to throw out there. Like I think it's, a player, whenever a player like that comes over, it's very easy to kind of offer armchair analysis of just being super confident. Oh, either he's going to homer a lot or he's going to strike out a lot. Whichever camp you fall into, it's very easy to kind of just decide that. I'm gonna stay above the fray. I don't want to park myself firmly into either one of those camps just yet. I would say for me though, as far as Yankees stuff goes, the bigger concern for me would kind of just be the defense, because from what people are saying, he doesn't really project great as a third baseman in the long run. He's probably more so of a first baseman DH. And that's kind of just something that's going to be interesting for MLB front offices to evaluate, because Alonso is kind of the same way, where MLB front offices, especially last offseason, like all the first basemen, nobody wants to pay first baseman. Nobody wanted to pay Pete Alonso last winter because all these front offices said, I'll go get Nathaniel Lowe, or I'll go get Josh Naylor, or I'll go get Carlos Santana or Paul Goldschmidt, or, whoever you want to use. And they'll do 70% of what Pete Alonso does for 30% of the price. And it's kind of like what running backs were in the NFL for a little while. And I can't entirely fault front offices for thinking that way. I am curious to see how much the Blue Jays paying Vladdy and doing what they did in year one of that deal ends up influencing how front offices handle that. I'm very curious to see how the Alonso saga plays out with the Mets. I think that's going to be one of the most interesting parts of this offseason. But with Murakami, that's going to be really telling. It's going to be an interesting sign of how much do MLB teams care about what their algorithm says, as far as this guy's a first base power bat. I'm not even going to say doesn't project well in the long run, like maybe projects well in the long run, but you just can't say anything definitively. And there's a good chance that, like I said, the guy behind him that makes league minimum might be able to do half of what he does. Or are those, kind of algorithms going to be overruled by a lot of teams that are looking at all the money that these Japanese guys are bringing in, and they'll say, hey, we need to roll of dice on this guy just because, like I said, with Imai, the Yankees might just say, like, hey, we might be at a 7 out of 10 on him as a pitcher instead of a 10 out of 10, but we just need in on this Japanese, money cash cow, essentially.
Okay, let's play a game here, right? I'm going to give you a free agent or a Yankee right now, currently, and if he's still on the team or / signs with the team this year, you give me either I'm good with that, neutral, or please don't. Okay, so let's start off with my man, Low Lev Dev.
Low Lev Dev. I would be fine with it just from a perspective of, I think if the Yankees bring him back, it would only be on like a 1-year deal, and they would say, hey, we have an extra offseason to tinker with some things with you. I think the Yankees would only bring him back if his market really falls through and he, kind of falls back into their lap, and they say, hey, we know you better than all these other teams do. We have a lot more data on you, and we're willing to, and we think that if we have an extra full winter, that we could fix some of these small things. I just don't think it's going to happen more than anything else. But I would be like fine with it, but not pumped.
All right, Pete Alonso.
Again, it's just not going to happen. So it's hard for me to really even put a lot of stock into it. If it happens, don't get me wrong, I would talk myself into it overnight just because the power, like I've been saying, the Yankees need a righty bat. I'm sure every Yankees fan would be a little bit pumped to kind of stick it to the Mets a little bit after they took Soto from us last year. But especially with having Rice in the mix, I think a lot of things would need to, there would be a lot of different dominoes that would need to fall to leave the Yankees in a position where Pete Alonso was someone they're looking at.
All right, Bo Bichette.
I mean, if they get him to be shortstop, I don't really believe in the defense, but I would be pumped just because it means that the Yankees kind of finally drew a line in the sand with Volpe. I guess otherwise you'd be looking at him for third, right? I'll say pumped. I'll say that would be the first one that you said that I would be like, all right, let's go. It would be a shocking move. I think that's fair to say because I think I know there's been a lot of stuff about how Bo Bichette's willing to play second and third, but I feel like in recent years we've seen kind of every free agent that's a shortstop just so that everybody knows, hey, he'll do whatever, he's not only looking at teams that have holes at shortstop. I would be pumped. I would be pumped because of how shocked that would be because it would be a real, we're going to go get this guy from the Blue Jays. So it would be a very Yankee move.
Okay, and now for our last one, let's go into the Randy Miller trap of Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not going to happen. So I'm not going to engage with that one. I would love it. How about that? I would be over the moon excited and 0% chance it happens. At least this one. Next winter, the winter after.
Yeah, I kind of had the same reaction you did. Randy Miller, why are you listening to him? There is absolutely no way that was true.
Not only would Randy Miller be the last reporter ever who would get a scoop of that caliber, but even if it is true, say we live in that world for a second, it doesn't mean anything. Not only can Paul Skeens not force his way to the Yankees via trade, but I don't think that the Yankees would even really be that well equipped to put together a package for him. I saw oh my God, it was making me angry to see the amount of people that was like, fine, send Spencer Paul Skeens. Guess what? There's 15 teams in baseball that would give up 5 times that for him without blinking. So Spencer Jones, could be a great MLB player. I hope he works out great for the Yankees. Not going to be the centerpiece of a deal for Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I still don't believe that he's going to play a single game for the Yankees. Prove me wrong. I don't think the Yankees.
I think I would probably still lean that. I don't know about not play a single game. He could, maybe play a little bit and they could trade at the deadline. Maybe something like that is possible. But I think especially if and hopefully when they bring back Bellinger, they're going to be in a point where it's very clearly an odd man out situation for one of Jones or Dominguez. And I think they would rather sell high because Jones' value right now might be a little bit lower than where it was at the deadline when he was, hitting 3 homers ever, getting where Spencer Jones' value was at last year. When the Kyle Tucker rumors were happening last year and we were throwing out, I would give them Ben Rice. I would give, would you give them Lombard? Would you give them Heel? Spencer Jones' name wasn't even really being thrown out there, not because Yankees fans didn't have a problem to give him up, but just because he was had lost all of his value. He's not even someone whose name you're going to bring up in those negotiations. For a long time, I was saying the fact that the Yankees drew a line in the sand with Jones and weren't willing to trade him for Corbin Burns or Dylan Cease in 2024. I was like, damn, that might be one that doesn't age great. So I think the Yankees deep down know that they really, really, really do not want to look back in a few years and go damn, we had Spencer Jones in 2024. We didn't cash him in. He lost all of his value, and we felt awful about that. And then he got all of his value back, and we had a chance to get him, and we still didn't do it. I think the Yankees want to I wouldn't even say cut their loss. I think the Yankees would say, no, let's sell high on him while we still have a chance because we're not going to let ourselves make the same mistake twice. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I was really daydreaming up until a couple of days ago that they were going to get Bellinger and Tucker and then trade Jones and Dominguez for someone like Consumer. Say, obviously, you had to put more in there. And then Consumer say, pops the balloon and says, I don't want to be a Yankee. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think paying Bellinger and Tucker is probably where you are. It's probably the first place in that hypothetical that your mind started running a little too far. I would love it. Hal, please prove me wrong. Go do it. But I think I would guess. I don't really know where Tucker's going right now, if I'm being honest with you. I think I would guess the Dodgers are going to be the Cubs, but now all the reports are coming out of Chicago where that's very much not going to be a thing. And I think Cubs fans are kind of fine with that because Tucker kind of just wasn't that guy on the way out like they thought he was going to be. He fell off pretty hard. He probably really screwed himself over by playing through that injury for a couple months, honestly. Like, he might have lost out on $100, $200 million by doing that. I still think he'll be fine. I would still guess Tucker's going to get $500 million, which isn't a take a lot of people are throwing out there right now. But I think with how young he is, with all the different things he can do on a baseball field, I think especially people always forget that we sit here in November and throw out the numbers we think these guys are going to get. And then a month from now, when it's the winter meetings and everybody's panicking and say Bellinger or one of those guys gets signed first, and all these teams suddenly go like, we really need Tucker. Like, Scott Boras and all these other big baller agents are good at what they do for a reason. Like, they're going to pit these teams against each other, especially if it's another Mets-Dodgers bidding war. We know how that's going to go. So I think a lot of people are undershooting the money that Tucker's going to get.
Yeah, I think if Kyle Tucker ends up a Dodger, I think we can all free our calendars for the 2027 season, because I don't think it's happening now.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong.
I was thinking about it the other day, and this is probably me in the offseason right now, but like, at the end of the day, I really want to win a championship. But if the Yankees played every single game of the year and there was no championship, and they just played every day, like, people are saying, oh, what's the point? Like, I'll give you an example. The last game of the season when the Blue Jays won that game, and that game absolutely meant nothing, like in the 8th and 9th inning, it was like I was at a family event. People were like, oh, why don't you come turn off the game? I'm like, do I really watch the games because they mean something, or do I watch Yankee games because I love watching the Yankees play baseball? And yeah. I watch spring training games like it's the postseason. So, like, yeah. I would do anything right now.
It's a fine line. Like, I always go back and forth on that because on one hand, I got into this with Passan a little bit when he came on my podcast this year, and that clip kind of blew up. But I think people kind of discount the nuance of the debate a lot, where on one hand, it is true that, like, the Yankees are championship or bust, right? Like, the Yankees brand themselves as that. The Yankees, how many times, how many cheater quotes are there about, as long as you win, as long as you don't win the last game of the year, who cares? All the quotes like that. Steinbrenner, like, the Yankees have very much built themselves up on this brand. So I think a lot of people try to dunk on Yankees fans for being championship or bust, and I think that's unfair because I think that's just Yankees fans being like, this is what the organization says we should hold them to that standard to. So I'm not going to do that. But that being said, I also think it's true that if you're only watching baseball saying, oh, if they don't win in October, then everything I watched from, April through September doesn't mean anything, then I agree. I think you're missing out on a lot of I love being able to just come home on a Tuesday night in April and say, okay, Yankees Tigers tonight in Detroit. We got, I don't know, Alan Winans has a spot start and he's going up against Casey Mize. Like, what's what's going to be, what do I think is going to be important in this game? Like, that's the kind of thing that I nerd out about, right? Like, I honestly, it's once the offseason comes around every year that I forget, like, oh yeah, like Tuesday night at 7 p.m., like, I don't have anything to do now during baseball season. It very naturally just fills that void to the point where when there's an off day, I'm kind of like, oh, like, I have a day to, like, live my life now. Like, this is kind of nice. But during the off season, it's like, oh man, like, it kind of gives you some perspective of how much baseball really consumes your days and especially your nights from April through October. But yeah, I think you can see the beauty in that, and I think you can love all of that, and I think you can be invested in that while also still being a Yankee fan who says, hey, this organization prides itself and brands itself on winning and championships and titles, and that's what they tell me to evaluate them on. So how am I not going to do that?
I mean, at the end of the day, like, winning the World Series is probably the greatest moment of my life. But the next day you wake up and there's still no baseball. Like, you still got to go into the offseason and then you think about what's next, and you're thinking forward to the next game. So you want to win a championship, but you're looking forward to the next game. And before we'll go, I'll say one final thing about that. It's like, I consider myself, someone asked me if I'm a Knicks fan. I say I am a Knicks fan, right? The Giants are kind of in the middle line between the Knicks and the Yankees. But if someone asked me if I'm a Yankee fan, like, I could say I'm a Yankee fan, but words don't describe, like, if you ask anyone, like, oh, like, give me one, like, you poll 100 people and you say, if you describe Noah Kessler in one word for you, and it would be the Yankees. And I think you feel the same way, that the Yankees, it's just who I am at this point. Like, I'm not, like, I'm more than a Yankee fan. I am a Yankee. Like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That, like,
yeah, I'll tell you, like, for like this year, this year was probably the least like depressed I've ever been when the Yankees got bounced from the playoffs, just because, especially after like all the losing streaks and where they're at in July and August, I kind of just accepted like, I don't think this is a very good team. Like the only reason I really still believed to an extent was just because I looked around the AL and I was like, I don't think anyone else is that good either. But I didn't have the heartstrings the same way I usually do, just because in 2019 and 2020, 24, all those years, like I really believe like this Yankees team is a good team, and this is a team that whoever they're looking down on the field, I really believe they're going to be. 2024 team also wasn't that like great, but the AL also just stunk that year. This year wasn't quite the same way, but even with that, like I kind of had a moment of reckoning with myself where I was like, man, like my Yankees fandom isn't like falling off, is it? And then the calendar turns November, and I'm still like sitting here strapped in for like, all right, Tuesday is Rule 5 protection day. Who are the Yankees going to protect? Who are they going to add to their 40-man roster? Like that kind of thing. And it's like, as long as I'm still invested in that, deep cut level nerd baseball, I think we'll be all right. I don't think my passion for the Yankees is going anywhere.
Yeah, like I cry when the Yankees get bounced in the playoffs, but like it's not like people say, oh, but you're not part of the team. It's not. I don't cry because they lost. I think I cry because now you got to go to the offseason and there's no more Yankees baseball.
Yeah, it's like I don't get to watch a Yankees game until April. Like that sucks.
Yeah, like
for sure.
Like there was a moment, a Saturday night this year, where they played the Dodgers, right? And I turned on my phone and they were down like 11-1. Like Will Warren started that game, and I was gonna turn it off, and I was like, in November, I would do anything to watch the Yankees down 11-1 right now. Like the Blue Jays game where they went down 8-0. I remember turning that game off and just walking upstairs, and I stopped myself, and I'm like, if in November 14th, I'm gonna be sitting there saying, wow, like I turned the Yankee game off early, and I went back and turned that game on. They came back in that game, and then they lost. So, Max, it's always good. It's always good talking ball with you. So
yeah, thanks for having me on, Noak. Hope we'll do it again sometime soon.
Thanks for coming on. Maybe we'll get a Team Israel prediction for WBC episode coming. So
yeah, that would be fun. We'll have to run that at some point.
All right. Always good talking to you.
All right.